I'm Zoe and today we're doing a thrift flip. So I found this purple paradox puffer at the Sally Ann and
I don't know if you can see this, but it was 50% off $7. So I paid $3.50, no tax.
This is the jacket originally, and this is what it looks like after adding the cinching at the waist. And then this is what it looks like when you tuck it up and wear it cropped. I really wasn't sure this was gonna work, and the process wasn't exactly smooth, but I really liked the way it turned out. So my original idea was to run elastic through the bottom of the jacket with a cord stopper, but this jacket already had that, so I was able to test my idea. I tightened the elastic, then folded the jacket underneath itself so it would look cropped. It didn't work, and I realized I needed the elastic at my waist instead. So, to the tutorial. This is one of those neat little jackets that you can fold up and fit in a tiny little bag. This becomes relevant later. The first thing I wanted to do was cover up the logo because it was starting to wear off and it just didn't look very nice. So I tried a purple Sharpie and it didn't completely cover it, so then I got some acrylic paint with a fabric mixing medium and tried to color match it. The paint covered pretty well, but the texture was really glossy, so I ended up making it a heart shape. Now, for the elastic, I had to get inside the jacket, so I decided to use eyelets instead of just cutting a hole because I didn't know how the fabric would act. So I started marking where I wanted to put the eyelets, then I realized that was the wrong spot, and I remarked where I wanted to put the eyelets, one on each side of the zipper. The eyelets came with a small hole punch, the eyelet tool, eyelets of course, and you will need a hammer and something hard you can hammer on. I couldn't get the hole punch to work for me, so I tried to cut a tiny hole and squeeze the eyelet in, which regularly isn't difficult, but without access to the backside of the fabric, I couldn't tell if I was going through properly or not. And in order for this to work, the eyelet can only go through the top layer of fabric, so I really struggled with this part. Then when I finally got it right, I flipped it over onto my hard surface, put the eyelet tool on the back, and hammered it flat. Then I had a sad realization that I would have to add more eyelets on either side of each vertical seam because the seams go all the way through. So I continued to mark the eyelet holes and try my best to install them. It took so long to do the front 6, long enough in fact, to realize that I hated the paint heart. It looked like a stain. So I added some color shifting glitter, 2 coats of that, and then when that dried, I still hated it. So I found this little plastic embellishment that I will glue on later. You may realize now that I have a broken nail. It's actually the next day because I was so frustrated with the eyelets. And in honor of my fallen nail, you should subscribe. All right, so the front seams were dealt with. I just had to do the back. And here's a closer look at the eyelet installation. Now keep in mind that this was the best take at 8 times normal speed. Then I glued the little embellishment on with my glue gun. Now, as long as you have a high heat glue gun and you use enough glue, it'll be fine in the washing machine. I grabbed some black elastic because I couldn't find purple, and the purple elastic from the bottom of the jacket wasn't long enough because I needed to double it. So I measured out a little more than twice around my waist, then I used a plastic yarn needle to start weaving the elastic inside of the jacket through the eyelets, starting on one side of the zipper. This is when I realized 2 issues. Remember when I said the jacket folds up into a tiny little bag? Well, in order for that to work, the fabric has to be very, very thin. Too thin to withstand the hammering. So when I installed the eyelets, they went all the way through in some places and grabbed onto the inner layer of fabric, which made it very hard to get into and out of the inside of the jacket. The other issue was feathers. I should have looked, but I did not expect this jacket to be filled with real down feathers. I thought it would be some cheap alternative. So initially I was just stuffing them back in, but then I realized this was going to keep happening, so I started pulling them out. Now there are only so many feathers in this row of puff, and after the tutorial the elastic doesn't move too much, so eventually the feathers did stop coming out, but while filming this, it was like a bird exploded. Eventually, I did get the elastic all the way through out the other side of the zipper, where I then strung it through a cord stopper. Then I put a plastic bead that was larger than the eyelets on it and strung it back through the cord stop, making a little loop with a bead on it. I grabbed my plastic needle again and wove that same end of elastic back through all of the eyelets, through the jacket, and out the other side. Be sure to keep track of the other end of the elastic so that it doesn't get pulled back in. So now I had both ends coming out of one of the front eyelets. I put one more plastic bead on it, and then I tied the ends together and adjusted the elastic around so that I could stuff the knot inside and hide it. The last thing I did was just reinforce some of the eyelets with a tiny bit of hot glue, just where I was worried about the integrity of the fabric, but I probably wouldn't have had to do this with most fabrics. Now, to wear it cinched, I just put it on, tightened the elastic, and then made sure it wasn't bunched up on one side. Then I tied the ends together because they were kind of long. For the crop, all I did was fold the bottom of the jacket underneath itself up to the waist, then tightened the elastic and tied the ends, but you can tuck them up inside as well. And that is the end of our journey today. Thank you so much for coming along. I appreciate every one of you. Mwah!